Hello, people of the internet, welcome back. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Alina, and it's very nice to meet you. I've been facing a bit of a problem, and I think the hobby gamers among you will absolutely be able to relate, which is that over the past few months, I have bought and started several games that I have yet to finish. Not because I don't want to or because they're boring or anything like that. I just keep telling myself that I don't have the time, but in reality, I'm just not making the time to really actively sit down and focus on these games that are just laying around half played. So I want to change that. This has been an issue and it's something I really wanted to solve for myself in the new year. So here I am, and I thought, why not make it into a vlog? I'm going to be taking you along while I actively make time, sit down, continue, and finish 4 horror games that I've just been sitting around. These 4 horror games I have started, I have really enjoyed. Some are even close to finished, but I have just not taken the time to sit down and do that. So we're gonna do it together because it's probably gonna make it easier for me to say, hey, I have something to film, so let's go do that. So the games we're gonna be playing and finishing next week are going to be Crow Country, Resident Evil 3, and the Silent Hill 2 remake. As you can already see, big emphasis on survival horror here, because next to psychological horror, it is my absolute favorite genre. And it's such a shame that I just have not taken the time to sit down and play through these games, because I know I would probably enjoy all of them a lot. And I did. So far, I really did. Anyway, you will now be my witnesses. And after I finish a game, I'm gonna give you a little review on how I found it, what I liked, what I didn't like. I think it's gonna be a fun time. That's the plan. I'm excited to get to it. So let's go. Alright, here we can see that it's already been quite a while since I last played. 20th of December last year, to be exact, so quite over a month. And I'm currently in the submarine, which I think is the second to last area. I'm not quite sure, actually. I should really be able to finish this soon, I think, as long as I get all the puzzles right and everything. So, let's see. Oh my goodness, I finished it. It is done, and oh my goodness, was it a great time. It's quite late, so I am gonna sleep over this, and then I'm gonna talk about my thoughts and feelings tomorrow. Here's my results. I have used 38 heals, spent 3 hints. At first I didn't even know what that was. I found all 15 secrets, and I have not used a single life. And my final rank is an A. Pretty happy about that. So I am finally getting to sit down and record my review for Crow Country now that I finished it. And I think we'll just get right into it. So I will start off with a little introduction about the game for those of you who might have never heard about it before. So Crow Country is not just the name of the game, but also of the theme park that it takes place in. You play as Mara Forrest, a young police officer who is there to investigate the disappearance of Edward Crow, who is the owner of the theme park. As very typical for survival horror games, the protagonist is trying to find person XY in a more or less abandoned and run-down location. I don't want to give too much away, but the premise will sound very familiar to seasoned survival horror players, and so will the gameplay. So you run around areas of the theme park, solving puzzles to unlock new areas or find key items, while also unraveling a dark secret which led to the theme park closing. Overall, the game wasn't too difficult if you play on a normal difficulty like I did. You are given plenty of ammo, but not overly much so that it feels like you could just go around and waste it. I think it created a good balance of scarcity without feeling unfair or frustrating. Like, you had a lot of leniency. There's also no real inventory management required in this game, as you have dedicated slots for all key items or all weapons that you can find. The only thing that can happen is that if you're full on ammo for a specific weapon or a specific healing item, you just won't be able to pick it up. You will be able to come back for it later anytime though. Like in most classic survival horror games, you're not able to just save anywhere, but there is save points all throughout the game in the form of fire. I think those save points were all placed fairly close together, so you were usually always able to reach one if you really wanted to like go safe and quit the game. I think to some hardcore survival horror fans, this might not sound like a good thing because some of the difficulty comes from not being able to save your progress for a long while. But to me, as a safe scummer, this was actually quite appreciated. I did also love the puzzle solving in Crow Country. Now, I am saying this as somebody who adores puzzle and detective games, so if that's not you, my opinion also might not apply to you. I have heard people say that some of the puzzles have felt tedious to them, but I have had a lot of fun solving all the puzzles. Some do definitely require you to retain information that you have come across earlier in the game. So this is where my investigation journal definitely came in hand. It's not included in the regular version, but you can just take some other piece of paper and write down your notes in it. Especially if you play the game over shorter intervals like I did. This was definitely very handy because I would not have been able to just remember all of this. If you think something's important, you just scribble it down. So that's where I also had a lot of fun because it did feel like you are actively solving the puzzles. They're not just being handed to you. Another huge plus to me was the visual design of the game. I adore an old school polygony looking art style, and this was no exception. I think the game managed to look and feel depressing and grim while somehow also keeping that colorful look that is typical for a theme park. Despite the low pixel graphics, the monsters actually managed to terrify me quite a bit, especially the ones that were moving a little too fast. I think the sound design definitely added to that scary atmosphere, as different monsters had different sound cues and musical cues that really matched their looks and just amped up the overall creepiness, because most of you could hear them before you saw them coming. I am not going to speak too much on the story because that is something I would absolutely want you to experience for yourself if this game has caught your interest. But what I can say is that I enjoyed it a lot. The game is really good at slowly helping you piece together what really happened in Crow Country and how the different characters that you meet sort of play into the story and what their roles are. And the twist at the end got me good. It's definitely not a super long game, but the different difficulty modes and the additional challenges that you can unlock definitely add a certain amount of replayability. So overall, if you're a fan of classic survival horror like Silent Hill or Resident Evil, like I am, then I definitely recommend you check out this beautifully made indie title. I'm sure you won't regret it, and I personally loved it. So with our first game down, it is now time to move on to the second title in the list, which is Resident Evil 3 Remake. Alrighty, let's get into it. I honestly have no idea where I left off. Let's just hop right in. Alright, I am at the gun shop. It seems. Return to the subway station is what I gotta do next. Okay, I would say I'm about like a little bit more than midway through. I'm actually not quite sure. Also, what's wrong with these textures? Anyway, you know what? I'll just keep playing and see where it goes from here. Alright, so I finally finished Resident Evil 3 Remake, and here's my results that are absolutely horrendous. But we don't care, I'm just happy I finished it. I played it on standard. It took me almost 5.5 hours. I have saved almost 50 times because I am the biggest save spammer of all time. I died 3 times and I got a C rank, probably just because of the times that I've saved. But honestly, I do think I had it running in the background while I was grocery shopping once, so maybe that added a little to it. I do not think I actually spent 5.5 hours playing this. I don't know if that counts. Anyway, we are done, finally, and I'm gonna let it sit, and then the review will be incoming. Before I start with my Resident Evil 3 review, I would like you to appreciate this loaf over here. Thank you. Alright, I finally finished it, and it is time to go over what I liked and didn't like about Resident Evil 3 Remake. And honestly, I don't have too much to say about this game. Despite me taking quite a bit longer, the game is actually relatively short when you look at it in terms of playable content. You run around Raccoon City trying to escape before the nuke hits, while also running from probably the most annoying enemy in Resident Evil history. Nemesis really earned his name here because I genuinely hate that guy. He's way too fast for a stalker enemy, in my opinion, and you have to fight him like 4 separate times because that guy just doesn't die. I do love Jill though. I do love Carlos, which balances out some of the more annoying parts of the game. But still, this remake is probably on the bottom of my Resident Evil ranking at the moment. The combat is very fun, I'll give them that, and I would think that it's probably one of the better games for speedrunning and challenge runs, just because of the shorter playtime. So overall, definitely not my favorite Resident Evil game, and I do wish that it had had more story content, but playing through it still was fun enough overall, even though I took ages to actually go back and finish it. But I am glad that I didn't drop it like I was tempted to. More or less solid Resident Evil experience if you're all in for the combat. So that's that. That's another one down, which means I will be moving on to the next game, which is Silent Hill 2 Remake. I once again have no idea where I left off. I just remember it being dark and scary. So we'll jump back into that once I mentally prepared myself for it. Anyway, I have my emotional support right here, so we can do this. Alrighty. I have no idea where I left off. I haven't played since September last year, and I am now in a desolate corridor in the labyrinth. Okay. I honestly do not remember how I got here or what that means, but we're gonna roll with it and finish this game. Let's go. So, I just rolled credits on Silent Hill 2 Remake, and excuse my voice because that ending actually made me tear up quite a bit. But yeah, I did it. I reached the leave ending, which a lot of people consider to be the best ending. But yeah, I'm gonna let that sit and think about it for a while, and then I will give you my review. But as you can tell, the ending really touched me, so I think the review is gonna be pretty good. So here's my summary. I did play on light for the combat challenge and on standard for the puzzle challenge, simply because I already knew I was gonna be scared. I didn't want it to be like hard combat too. I got the leave ending, 1 out of 8. So yeah, this was my first playthrough. I played a total of 21 hours and 30 minutes. Distance traveled is an interesting fact that they tell you. Yeah, all the other ones you can just read off the screen. Oh, and the title screen changed. I do love it when games do that. When you finish it once, you get a different title screen. That's a really cool detail that I love very much. Anyway, I really am out now. I'm gonna go sleep over this. See ya. Alrighty, it took a while to process my thoughts, but here's my review for the Silent Hill 2 remake. I cannot begin to tell you how much I genuinely enjoyed this game. I still remember how much skepticism Bloober Team got when they took on this remake, but I have to say they absolutely smashed it. For those of you who might not be familiar with the Silent Hill franchise, the game I played is a remake of the 2001 survival horror staple Silent Hill 2. In this game, you play as James Sunderland, who receives a letter from his deceased wife, Mary, telling him to come visit him at their special place in Silent Hill. James ends up fulfilling his dead wife's request and goes to look for her in what now looks like a complete ghost town. You spend the game exploring Silent Hill, fighting off terrifying monsters, and ultimately trying to reunite with Mary while the town torments you. And that brings me to probably the biggest achievement of this remake, which is the visual and sound design. I have never seen a game capture so many unnerving emotions at once, but this one really did it perfectly. The environment looks absolutely nightmarish with fleshy, grimy textures everywhere. There's so many confusing, claustrophobic spaces that make no sense and grotesque monsters lurking just out of sight. I was so on edge every time I was playing through an Otherworld level, and no matter how long I spent there, that anxiety would just not go away. What added to this immensely, like I said, was the sound design. The radio you carry started crackling every time an enemy was moving nearby, making you wary before even seeing the monster. And that had me on edge every time. You would hear random whispers out of nowhere. One of these actually scared me so bad I had to take a break from playing because I legit thought that somebody was like right behind me inside my house. It really was so well done. As in any classic survival horror game, there are quite a few puzzles to solve and monsters to fight. And when it comes to puzzles, you already know I enjoy them a lot, and Silent Hill 2 was no exception in that regard. Most of them weren't too challenging on the difficulty that I played on, although I did get stuck on the labyrinth section for a bit. That one to me just felt very big and convoluted as a whole, but I could imagine that might even be intended for that section. This wasn't an issue to me, but there is quite a lot of backtracking involved in this game, so if that's not your thing, you might not enjoy a majority of the puzzle sections. Part of why it took me so long to beat is because I simply love exploring and don't want to miss a thing, so I really don't mind passing through the same section a few times because it helps me be sure that I didn't miss anything. But I understand that not everyone is like that. The combat system to me felt really fitting as well. The melee attacks felt brutal and rough, and while hitting as James, you could really feel the brute force of someone who's just terrified. Aww. The shooting felt quite similar to me, as the shots felt really hard-hitting, to a point you could almost feel like the recoil yourself. They did make it very apparent that James is just some guy with no combat experience whatsoever, and fighting as him really did feel like that. It was brutal and clumsy and desperate, and that made enemy encounters so much more terrifying in a way. As much praise as I have for this game, because it was really a great game, I do have to admit that it did feel rather long for a survival horror game. The website How Long to Beat marks it with 16 hours for a regular playthrough and up to 32 hours to 100% the game. My own playthrough took me over 20 hours, and while I did enjoy my time playing, it did feel long-winded at times. To my knowledge, the original game is only half as long as the remake. Bloober Team decided to add a lot of side quests and stretched out some areas, which in itself is a nice idea, but it ended up being a bit too long in my opinion. especially as Silent Hill 2 is a game you might want to replay, given that there's 8 different endings that you can experience. Overall though, I did very much enjoy this game. It was absolutely terrifying and sickening in all the right ways. So I do recommend this to any fan of psychological and survival horror. The way this game depicts mental health struggles, guilt, and some other unspeakable wrongdoings shook me to my core, and I do really wish that I could experience it for the first time again. And you know a game is good when it makes you think that. Well guys, we did it! We finished all 3 games that I had on my list, and I am so happy that I finally sat down and played them all. It did definitely take me longer than anticipated, but done is done, am I right? I do have a few bonuses for you if you're interested. While working on this vlog, I have also played several other horror and mystery games that I did reviews for over on my other channel. So next to finishing these 3 games, I have also played the long-anticipated Resident Evil Requiem, as well as 2 indie titles called No Means Nothing and No Case Should Remain Unsolved. If you want to say what I had to say about these games, feel free to head over to my horror channel and check out my reviews there. I do want to thank you guys so much for watching my vlog. It means the world to me to be able to share my hobbies and interests like this one on here, and I absolutely hope to see you for the next one. Bye bye!